Writing, "You've been avoiding looking at me all morning." Mason's voice dropped low enough that only I could hear it. And just like that, I forgot how to work a cash register. My hand froze over the change drawer. He stood on the other side of the bakery counter with one elbow resting against the glass. Dark hair still damp from the light rain outside. Same worn leather jacket. Same troublemaker smile. Same eyes that had almost made me do something incredibly stupid in the storage room 2 nights ago. Almost. That was the word I'd been using ever since. We had almost kissed. His hand had almost touched my face. I had almost leaned in. Then Grandma Ruth called my name from the kitchen, and we jumped apart like we'd been caught stealing. Nothing happened, technically, so there was nothing to talk about. At least that was what I kept telling myself. "I've looked at you," I muttered, counting his change for the second time. Mason's mouth tilted slightly. "You've looked at my shoulder. The menu. That old guy's newspaper." He nodded toward a customer by the window. "Pretty sure you studied the fire extinguisher for a full minute." Heat climbed into my face. Maybe I care about fire safety. Sure, Strawberry. I hated that nickname. Mostly because I didn't hate it at all when he said it. I slid his coffee across the counter, followed by the same strawberry turnover he bought every morning despite claiming he didn't like sweet things. His fingers brushed mine around the paper cup. It should have lasted half a second. It didn't. His thumb rested against the side of my hand, warm and rough from working at the garage. My chest tightened. For a moment, neither of us moved. The bakery noise faded behind him. The espresso machine, dishes clinking, Grandma humming in the kitchen. All I could focus on was the way Mason's expression changed. The teasing faded. Something quieter took its place. Then I pulled my hand back. "Too fast. Your coffee's getting cold. You just poured it. Then you should drink it while it's hot." Smooth. Really smooth. Mason picked up the cup, but didn't leave. Instead, he glanced toward his usual table by the window. He'd been sitting there every morning for nearly 3 months. Sometimes for 10 minutes. Sometimes until my shift ended. I told myself it was because the garage didn't open until 9. I ignored the fact that it opened at 8. "You working late today?" His tone was casual, but his eyes stayed on me. "Maybe. That means yes. Why do you care?" The question came out sharper than I intended. Mason went still. Not offended. Just surprised. My stomach dropped. I opened my mouth to take it back, but he leaned closer across the counter. Close enough that I caught the faint scent of motor oil and peppermint gum. "Because I was thinking about walking you home." My heart gave one hard, embarrassing beat. "You don't have to." "I know." His gaze dropped briefly to my mouth, then returned to my eyes. "That's not what I asked." Before I could answer, Grandma Ruth pushed through the kitchen door carrying a tray of fresh muffins. Mason stepped back immediately. The space between us returned, but it didn't feel normal anymore. He took his usual seat by the window, leaving the chair across from him empty. Every few minutes, I caught him watching me. And every time, I looked away. It probably meant nothing. Mason flirted with everyone. Mason liked making me nervous. Mason was just being Mason. That explanation worked until my shift ended, and I walked outside. He was waiting beneath the awning, holding an umbrella in one hand and my favorite coffee in the other. "Ready, Strawberry?" That was when I realized he hadn't been asking whether I wanted him to walk me home. He had already decided he was staying. Writing, "You brought him home in the rain and expected me not to feed him?" Grandma Ruth looked at me like I had personally insulted every grandmother in America. Mason stood beside the front door, water dripping from his jacket onto the old welcome mat, one hand still wrapped around the umbrella he had held over me the entire walk. Mostly over me, anyway. His right shoulder was soaked. Mine was completely dry. He was just walking me home, I told her. And now he is coming inside. She pointed toward the kitchen with the wooden spoon in her hand. "Dinner is in 10 minutes. Mason glanced at me, suddenly less like the guy everyone in town called trouble and more like someone considering an escape route. "I should probably get going." "In that weather?" Grandma shook her head. "Absolutely not." Thunder rolled somewhere outside, as if the sky had decided to support her argument. Mason rubbed the back of his neck. "I do not want to intrude, ma'am." Grandma Ruth narrowed her eyes. "Do not call me ma'am. It makes me feel like I am about to arrest you." A laugh escaped me before I could stop it. Mason looked over. For a second, his nervous expression softened. "You think this is funny, Strawberry?" "A little." "Good to know." He stepped closer and held out the coffee he had bought me earlier. "Here, before you forget it again." Our fingers touched around the cup. Just a brush. Nothing dramatic. but his hand stayed there until I looked up. His eyes held mine longer than they needed to, warm and unreadable, while Grandma moved around behind us opening cabinets. "Thank you," I managed. Mason's thumb shifted once against my knuckle before he let go. Maybe it was an accident. That was getting harder to believe. 10 minutes later, he was sitting across from me at the kitchen table, looking almost painfully careful. He had removed his jacket, revealing a faded black t-shirt and the tattoo winding down his forearm. I noticed Grandma noticing it. Mason noticed too. His shoulders tightened. Then she placed a bowl of beef stew in front of him. "Eat before it gets cold." He blinked. "Thank you. You work at the garage near the bakery, right?" "Yes. Mostly repairs. Sometimes towing." "That explains the hands." Mason looked down at them like he had forgotten they were there. Grease still darkened the edges of his nails despite how clean he had tried to get them. "Sorry. I came straight from work." Grandma waved him off. Dirty hands usually mean honest work. Something changed in his face. Small, but I saw it. He was not used to being given the benefit of the doubt. During dinner, Mason kept trying to help. He passed Grandma the bread before she reached for it. He stood to refill her water. When she mentioned the cabinet hinge had been sticking, he was out of his chair before she finished the sentence. "I can take a look. You are a guest." "I am bad at that." Grandma smiled. I noticed. Later, while Mason tightened the hinge, I leaned against the counter beside him. "You know she likes you." He kept his eyes on the screwdriver. "She has known me for 40 minutes. That is longer than she needs." "What about you?" His voice was quiet. My stomach tightened. "What about me?" Mason finally looked at me. "How long do you need?" Before I could answer, Grandma walked back into the kitchen. Mason stepped away from the cabinet, but the question stayed between us. When he left, Grandma waited until the front door closed. Then she looked at me over the rim of her tea. "That boy acts tough," she murmured. "But he watches you like he is afraid you will disappear." I laughed too quickly. "He does not." Grandma took another sip. "Sweetheart, I may be old. I am not blind." Writing, the next afternoon, I found Mason's jacket hanging over the back of a chair in our kitchen, and for one stupid second, I just stood there holding it. It still smelled faintly like rain, peppermint, and the garage. Grandma Ruth watched me from the sink. "You could return it," she offered. I was going to. "Of course you were." I ignored her smile and walked 3 blocks to read Auto with the jacket folded over my arm. The garage doors were open, music playing somewhere under the sound of an impact wrench. Mason was not in sight, but 2 mechanics near a lifted pickup noticed me immediately. One of them nodded at the jacket. "You looking for Reed? He left this at my house." The taller guy raised his eyebrows. "At your house?" His friend laughed. "Careful, bakery boy. Mason is bad news when people start getting attached." My grip tightened around the leather. "I am not attached." "Sure." The taller mechanic wiped his hands on a rag. "Just do not expect him to stick around. That guy disappears the second anything gets serious." Before I could answer, a metal door slammed behind them. Mason stepped out of the office, his expression unreadable. He had heard enough. "Do you two ever work?" His voice was calm, which somehow made both men move faster. They muttered something and disappeared beneath the truck. Mason looked at me, then at the jacket. "You came all the way over here for that." "It is 3 blocks. Still." He walked closer, wiping grease from his fingers. "You could have kept it." "Why would I keep your jacket?" A small smile pulled at his mouth. "You looked good in it." The answer hit too fast. I looked away, and of course he noticed. Mason took the jacket from me, but instead of putting it on, he stepped behind me and settled it over my shoulders. The leather was still warm from his hands. "It is colder than you think," he murmured. "Mason, I came here to return it. And I am returning it back." His fingers moved to the collar, pulling it closed near my throat. One knuckle brushed the side of my neck. My breath caught. He must have felt it, because his hand stopped. The garage suddenly felt too small, too quiet. I turned, and that only made it worse. We were standing close enough that I could see the tiny scar near his jaw and the tired shadows under his eyes. "Do you always take care of people this much?" I tried to make it sound like a joke. Mason did not smile. His gaze stayed on mine. No one word. No escape route. My chest tightened so hard it almost hurt. Then a wrench clattered across the floor behind us, and we both stepped apart. Mason shoved his hands into his pockets. The teasing was gone now. "Whatever they told you about me," he muttered, looking toward the open garage door. "It is probably true." That is not an explanation. It is a warning. He started to walk away. I caught his wrist before I could think better of it. Mason froze. His eyes dropped to my hand, then lifted slowly to my face. Neither of us moved. What if I do not want one? I whispered. For the first time since I had known him, Mason looked like I was the dangerous one. Writing, then prove them wrong. The words left my mouth before I had time to stop them. Mason stared at my hand around his wrist. I let go immediately, but the warmth of his skin stayed in my palm. You make that sound easy. His voice was quieter now. I did not say it was easy. For a second, neither of us moved. Then one of the mechanics shouted from beneath the truck, "Reed, your boyfriend's staying for dinner?" My face went hot. Mason turned his head slowly. "Keep talking, Travis, and you are closing alone." Laughter echoed through the garage. I expected Mason to make a joke. Instead, he looked back at me with something almost nervous in his eyes. "You hungry?" 10 minutes later, I was on the back of his motorcycle wearing his spare helmet and making several bad decisions at once. "Hold on," he called over his shoulder. "I am holding the seat. The seat is not going to catch you." I stared at the space between us. "Mason, Ethan." The engine vibrated beneath us as he waited. He was enjoying this. I could hear it in his voice. Finally, I placed both hands lightly against his sides. Mason glanced down at them, then pulled onto the street without another word. The diner sat just outside town, all red booths and coffee that tasted like it had been sitting there since sunrise. Mason slid into the booth across from me, then changed his mind and sat beside me instead. "The other side has a torn seat," he explained. It did not. Our knees touched under the table. He did not move his. I did not move mine. We ordered burgers, fries, and one strawberry milkshake after Mason claimed he only wanted a sip. He drank half of it. "You hate sweet things," I reminded him. "I am making an exception." "For the milkshake?" His gaze settled on me. "Sure." I looked down at my fries before my expression gave me away. We talked longer than I expected. About his garage. About the bakery. About how he had moved 4 times in 6 years because staying anywhere too long made him restless. Or scared, I added. Mason leaned back, studying me. "Grandma Ruth teach you to analyze people over stew. She liked you. That makes one of us." "What does that mean?" He traced a line through the condensation on his water glass. "People usually like me until they expect something." The joking tone was gone. "Then I disappoint them. Maybe you leave before they get the chance to decide." His eyes lifted to mine. I worried I had pushed too far. Then he gave a small nod. "Maybe." The waitress stopped beside us and glanced at the empty booth across the aisle. "You two want separate checks?" Mason did not look away from me. "One." My heart stumbled. "I can pay for myself." "I know." There it was again. That answer. Like the fact that he did not have to make it more important. Outside, the rain had started again. We stood beneath the diner awning, close enough that our shoulders touched. Mason reached toward my face. My breath stopped. His thumb brushed the corner of my mouth, slow and careful. "Strawberry syrup," he murmured. But he did not pull his hand away. His eyes dropped to my lips. Mine did the same. The space between us disappeared by inches. I could feel his breath. I could hear my pulse. Then his phone rang. Mason closed his eyes like he wanted to throw it into traffic. I stepped back, trying to remember how to breathe. He checked the screen and silenced it. "Ethan." I looked at him. His hand was still half raised between us. "What?" Mason swallowed. "Nothing." But the way he watched me ride home behind him, holding tighter this time, told me it had almost been something. Writing, the next morning, I saw Mason with another guy before he saw me. I was carrying a box of day-old pastries to the community fridge across the street when I spotted them outside the garage. The guy was tall, clean-cut, and way too comfortable standing in Mason's space. He laughed at something Mason said, then pulled him into a quick hug. Mason hugged him back. My stomach tightened so fast it was embarrassing. Then the guy handed him a key. Not a car key, a house key. Mason slipped it into his pocket and glanced toward the bakery. I stepped behind a parked truck before he could catch me staring. It was ridiculous. Mason and I had shared one almost kiss under a diner awning. That did not give me the right to care who hugged him. It definitely did not give me the right to wonder why someone was giving him a key. By the time I got back to the bakery, I had convinced myself I was fine. Then Mason walked in 20 minutes later. "Morning, strawberry." I kept my attention on the display case. "Morning." He waited. I could feel him watching me. "That is it." "What do you mean?" Usually you insult my coffee order. Maybe I am growing as a person. Mason leaned against the counter. You are terrible at acting normal. I am working. You are rearranging the same 3 muffins. I looked down. He was right. I moved to the register instead. Mason followed. Did I do something? No, Ethan. Your usual? His jaw tightened slightly. Sure. I poured his coffee, slid over the strawberry turnover, and made sure our hands did not touch. That was when Grandma Ruth came through the kitchen door. She looked at me, looked at Mason, then looked back at me. Well, she murmured, this is cheerful. Everything is fine. I replied too quickly. Mason gave a humorless laugh. Apparently. He took his coffee and went to his usual table. He did not stay long. That should have made things easier. It did not. Around noon, one of the mechanics from the garage came in for sandwiches. Travis, the same one who had called Mason my boyfriend. He glanced toward the empty window table. Trouble in paradise? There is no paradise. Right. He placed his order, still grinning. Mason has been in a mood all morning. Logan told him to stop being an idiot, but that usually takes a few business days. My chest tightened. Logan, his cousin. I stared at him. Travis frowned. You know, tall guy? Just moved back to Portland? Mason finally returned the key to their old apartment. Relief hit first, then shame followed right behind it. I had spent half the morning jealous of his cousin. Travis's grin widened as he put the pieces together. Oh wow. Do not. You thought Logan was someone else. I did not think anything. Sure, bakery boy. The moment my shift ended, I walked straight to the garage. Mason was alone in the back office, filling out paperwork. He looked up once, then returned to the page. Need another jacket? Logan is your cousin. His pen stopped. Slowly, he raised his eyes. Yes. You could have told me. You could have asked. Heat rose into my face. Why would I ask? Mason stood, pushing the chair back. That is what I would like to know. The office suddenly felt too small. He stepped around the desk, stopping a few feet away. You ignored me all morning because you saw him hug me. I did not ignore you. You handed me decaf. I winced. That was an accident. You hate me, not humanity. Despite myself, I almost smiled. Mason noticed. His expression softened, but he did not let me off the hook. Were you jealous? The question landed between us. I looked anywhere but at him. No, Mason moved closer. Ethan. It was confusing. That is not an answer. I finally met his eyes. He was not teasing now. Maybe I did not like it. His breath caught, barely noticeable. Then one corner of his mouth lifted. You do not get to act jealous and then tell me this is nothing. I had no reply. The worst part was, he was right. Writing. I was not joking at the diner. Mason's voice was so quiet I almost missed it. We were still standing in the garage office, close enough that I could see the small streak of grease near his cheek. My pulse stumbled. About what? His eyes narrowed slightly. You know what? I did. I just needed him to say it. Mason glanced toward the open office door, then reached past me and pushed it shut. The click made the room feel smaller. When I touched your face, he continued, I was not thinking about strawberry syrup. My throat went dry. Then why did you stop? My phone rang. You could have ignored it. I nearly did. He let out a breath and looked down, almost frustrated with himself. That is the problem, Ethan. I do not usually nearly do things like that. The teasing version of Mason was gone. No grin. No easy joke to give either of us an escape. I notice when you walk into a room, he admitted. I know what time your shift ends. I know you tap the counter when you are nervous, and I know you only pretend to hate that nickname. Heat climbed up my neck. I do hate it. Liar. His mouth softened, but his eyes stayed serious. And yesterday, when you pulled away from me, I hated that too. My chest tightened. So what are we doing? For one long second, Mason did not answer. Then he stepped closer and hooked one finger lightly through the sleeve of the jacket I was wearing. His jacket. I have no idea. Somehow, that felt more honest than a perfect answer. But I do not want to go back to normal. Neither did I. The truth sat right behind my teeth, terrifying and obvious. I almost said it. Then someone knocked hard on the office door. Reed, customer up front. Mason closed his eyes briefly. Of course. His hand slipped from my sleeve. Go, I murmured. You have work. He opened the door, then looked back at me. Do not disappear. You are the one with that reputation. A real smile crossed his face. Fair. That evening, Grandma Ruth found me slicing strawberries in the bakery kitchen long after closing. I had ruined 3 of them because my mind kept replaying Mason's words. You are smiling at fruit, she observed. I am not smiling. You are also a terrible liar. I set down the knife. Can I ask you something? Her expression softened. Always. I stared at the cutting board. What if someone is not who people think he is? You mean Mason? My head snapped up. Grandma gave me a patient look. Sweetheart. I exhaled. Everyone thinks he leaves when things get serious. Does he? I do not know. Then that is the question that matters. She wiped her hands on a towel. I do not care that you like a man. I care that you like someone who looks ready to run before you can ask him to stay. I swallowed. He is trying. Then make sure he understands that being cared for is not the same as being trapped. A sound came from the back hallway. The delivery entrance clicked shut. I hurried to the door, but by the time I reached the alley, it was empty. On the counter beside the repaired wooden shelf sat Mason's work gloves. He had heard enough to know we were talking about him, just not enough to understand what Grandma really meant. Writing, by the 3rd morning without Mason, I stopped pretending I had not noticed. His table by the window stayed empty. No black coffee. No strawberry turnover he claimed was too sweet. No motorcycle outside when my shift ended. The routine had disappeared so quietly that nobody should have cared. I cared. You have checked the doors 17 times, Grandma Ruth noted from the register. I am watching for customers. Of course. She did not look convinced. Neither was I. I texted Mason twice. The first message asked if he had forgotten his gloves. The second just said, "Are you okay?" He read both. He answered neither. By closing time, the turnover I usually saved for him was still sitting alone in the display case. I stared at it until my chest started to ache. Go, Grandma murmured. I can finish here. The garage was almost empty when I arrived. Mason stood beneath a raised sedan, tightening something overhead. He saw me, and his whole body went still. Then he looked back at the car. We are closed. You have been avoiding me. I have been working. For 3 days? He lowered the wrench and finally faced me. Dark circles sat beneath his eyes. Ethan, go home. The flatness in his voice hurt more than I expected. Do you regret what you told me? His expression shifted. What? You said you did not want to go back to normal. Then you disappeared. Mason set the wrench on the workbench too carefully. I heard your grandmother. You heard half a conversation. I heard enough. No, you did not. I stepped closer, anger pushing past the embarrassment. She was worried you would leave. So you decided to prove her right. His jaw tightened. She thinks I am going to hurt you. She thinks you are scared. Same difference. It is not. Mason looked away. You have a good life, Ethan. A family. The bakery. People who trust you. I am not going to make you defend me every time somebody decides I am bad news. Nobody asked you to. They will. Then let me decide if it is worth it. He laughed once, but there was no humor in it. That is easy to say now. Stop deciding what I will feel later. The garage went silent around us. Mason rubbed a hand over his face. I do not know how to do this. Neither do I. You deserve someone who does. That was the moment something in me snapped. You do not get to disappear and call it protecting me. His eyes lifted to mine. I could see the fear there now, stripped of all the attitude. What happens when this ruins everything? What everything? I gestured between us. The coffee? The stupid nickname? You sitting in my bakery for an hour because you are too scared to admit you came to see me. Mason flinched. I turned toward the open garage door before he could watch my face fall apart. Forget it. I made it 2 steps. His hand closed around my wrist. Not hard. Just certain. I stopped. Mason did not let go. I came every morning to see you, he confessed behind me. The coffee was terrible. I looked back. His thumb shifted against my pulse. And the turnovers. Way too sweet. You ate them anyway. Because you saved them for me. The space between us felt charged and fragile. Mason swallowed, his grip loosening but never disappearing. I was not staying away because I regretted it. His voice cracked slightly. I was staying away because I did not. My heart started pounding. Then stop leaving. He held my gaze for a long moment. I am trying. Try closer. Mason stepped forward until barely a breath fit between us. His free hand lifted, then paused near my face like he was still afraid to touch me. Neither of us moved. Then the garage door behind me rattled open, and Mason dropped his hand. But he kept holding my wrist. This time, even with someone coming, he did not let go. Writing, the garage door rolled up behind me, and Travis stepped inside, carrying a takeout bag. His eyes dropped to Mason's hand around my wrist. Then he looked at Mason. Then back at me. I can come back. Mason released me so fast, it almost felt like being dropped. You forgot your keys, he muttered. Travis held them up, clearly trying not to smile. Right? Keys. He grabbed his jacket from a hook and headed out again. At the door, he glanced over his shoulder. Lock up when you are done not arguing. The door shut. Silence rushed back in. Mason stared at the floor. This is what I mean. What? People notice. Let them. His head snapped up. You do not know what you are saying. I know exactly what I am saying. My hands were shaking, so I shoved them into my pockets. I am tired of acting like you sitting in my bakery every morning means nothing. I am tired of pretending I was not jealous. And I am really tired of you getting close, then deciding for both of us that it was a mistake. Mason's jaw tightened. I never called it a mistake. You disappeared. Because I was scared. The words came out sharp. Honest. They stopped me. Mason dragged a hand through his hair and turned away. There. You wanted the truth. Scared of what? Of wanting this more than you do. My chest tightened. He faced me again, and there was nothing guarded in his expression now. I know how ridiculous that sounds. You are the one who keeps showing up. You came here. You grabbed my wrist. You got jealous over my cousin. You are never letting that go, are you? Not a chance. The smallest smile appeared, then vanished. But you have people who love you, Ethan. You know how to stay. I do not. I stepped closer, then stopped practicing leaving. His eyes held mine. You make it sound simple. It is not simple. Another step. I just know I miss you when you are gone. Mason's breath caught. Mine did too. And I know I wanted you to kiss me outside that diner. He went completely still. There it was. No joke. No way to take it back. You did. Do not make me say it twice. I might need you to. Mason. He closed the distance between us, stopping inches away. His hand lifted slowly and rested against my cheek. Warm. Careful. He gave me time to move. I did not. I thought about it all night, he admitted. Then the next night. Then every time I saw you after. My fingers closed around the front of his jacket. So did I. His forehead touched mine. For a second, neither of us breathed. Tell me to stop, he whispered. I looked at his mouth, then back at his eyes. Stop running. That was all it took. Mason kissed me softly, like he still expected me to change my mind. I did not. I pulled him closer, and the kiss deepened only enough to make my heart pound harder. Then he stopped, searching my face. Still want me to leave? No. The answer came too quickly to hide. Mason let out a shaky laugh. Good. Later, behind the bakery after closing, I kissed him first. That was when the back door opened. Grandma Ruth stood there holding 2 grocery bags, staring directly at us. Mason stepped away. I forgot every word I had ever learned. Grandma looked from him to me, then down at the strawberries scattered across the counter inside. Well, she murmured, I suppose that explains a lot. Writing, for 3 full seconds, nobody moved. Mason looked like he was about to apologize, leave town, and possibly change his name. Grandma Ruth set the grocery bags on the counter. Well, Mason cleared his throat. Mrs. Parker, I am sorry. For kissing my grandson? He froze. I did too. Grandma raised one eyebrow. Or for doing it next to the pies I spent all afternoon decorating. I covered my face with one hand. Mason glanced at me, completely lost. I can explain. Please do not. She started unpacking groceries like she had not just caught us standing inches apart. I am old, not fragile. The kitchen stayed painfully quiet. Mason shifted toward the back door. I saw it happen. That tiny instinct to leave before things got harder. Before he could move, I reached for his hand. He looked down at our fingers, then at me. I did not let go. Grandma noticed. Of course she did. Sit, she told us. Both of you. We took the 2 chairs at the small kitchen table. Mason sat too straight, his hand still wrapped around mine beneath the table. I heard part of your conversation the other night, he admitted. I thought you wanted me away from Ethan. Grandma rested both hands around her coffee mug. I wanted to know whether you would stay when it became inconvenient. Mason swallowed. I am not very good at staying. I gathered that. He glanced at me. His thumb moved slowly across my knuckles. But I want to be. The words were simple. No speech. No promise he could not keep. Somehow, that made them feel more real. Grandma studied him for a long moment. Are you serious about him? Mason did not answer right away. He looked at me first, and the nervousness in his face softened. Yes. My chest tightened. Grandma nodded once. Then stop making him chase you across town. Grandma. What? He has short legs. Mason laughed before he could stop himself. So did I? The tension finally broke. The next morning, everything looked almost the same. Mason's motorcycle pulled up outside the bakery at 8:15. He walked in wearing the same leather jacket, ordered the same terrible coffee, and took the same table by the window. But this time, when I brought over his strawberry turnover, he caught my hand before I could pull away. Travis and 2 other mechanics were standing in line behind him. Grandma was at the register. Half the bakery could see us. Mason did not let go. You working late? His eyes held mine. Maybe. That means yes. Why do you care? A slow smile spread across his face. Because I am walking you home. I tried to look annoyed. I failed. He lifted my hand and pressed a quick kiss against my knuckles. Somewhere behind us, Travis made a choking sound. Grandma shook her head. Troublemaker. Mason kept looking at me. Only for your strawberry. My face went hot, but for once, I did not deny it. I sat across from him during my break. Our knees touched under the table. His hand found mine again, and neither of us pulled away. The routine was still there. Same bakery, same window, same coffee he secretly hated. But it did not feel like pretending anymore. I used to think getting caught would be the moment everything fell apart. Instead, it was the first time neither of us ran.